Evolving digital landscape. For your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Well, welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. We're going to have a great conversation today with a very experienced Fortune 500 executive who is bringing AI technology to small business. So welcome Wes to Marketing in the Age of AI, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me, Emmanuel.
Yeah, you bet. Oh, it's my pleasure to have you here. And please share some more about your background so we know what's brought you to this point.
Sure. So I started in technology back in 1997 when everyone didn't know what they were doing on the internet. And fortunately, that's when I started because I didn't study engineering or computer science, but was able to kind of scale with the times. And 7 years in server closets as a DBA and a website administrator. And then was very fortunate that I developed a specialty around book metadata, which very few people had at the time, and was able to be recruited by Amazon to help lead their North American media marketplace. And when I got there, that's when I think I really started to understand what technology can do. You know, I was able to scale through Amazon, helped launch one of their first billable web services, their digital video platform, and then joined Visa as the head of innovation and helped them build their PayPal competitor, and then head of innovation for Europe, sorry. And then went to Australia and helped a large e-commerce merchant flip from an auction website to fixed price, helped them sell a bunch of their company to private equity, and then joined PayPal. And at PayPal became the head of innovation there and helped them go from a digital only platform to omni-channel. And then did a couple quick stints as CPO at companies doing turnarounds. So at Rosetta Stone, we shifted from box product to digital product. Mm-hmm. At Big Commerce, we shifted from a focus on small merchants to more of an enterprise focus. And then I was able to build my own company, which was a lot of fun. And that got acquired by Target, which was awesome. And when I got to Target, they're such a big company and they have so much potential, and we had aligned incentives. And so I thought, let's see what we can do here. And I proposed a growth strategy for them, an innovation strategy, and they liked it. And so I went from being an entrepreneur in residence to being the vice president of innovation at Target, and built a startup accelerator, a Techstars startup accelerator, and led innovation across 14 different functions there, helping them build strategies and ultimately implement growth strategies. And then for the last 7 years, I've been trying to help folks understand the transformation that's coming with AI. It's something that I started, the first time I used machine learning was in 2005 at Amazon. I was the head of the European fraud program, and we needed to find a way to automatically and very, very efficiently detect fraudulent listings on Marketplace. And so we used machine learning, and we were able to cut the free cash flow loss from fraud by about 98% with some very simple algorithms. And when I was at Target, again, I saw just the incredible potential for what automation, what machine learning, what good data collection and operational processes can do. And think it's probably the single biggest opportunity for businesses, especially right now as we're out of the zero interest rate paradigm. Capital is more expensive. People have to be a little bit more deliberate about how they're going to grow revenue and cut costs. And I think the answer there is machine learning and AI.
Wow. Well, that's, you have an amazing pedigree to be, to help us get focused on how we're actually going to implement and use machine learning and these various AI technologies. What are some of the core philosophies that you have in the implementation stage?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about the business fundamentals. Every business has to do 5 things well. They have to grow revenue, decrease costs, mitigate risks, delight customers, and empower employees. If businesses do those 5 things well, they generally survive. If they truly want to thrive, they have to innovate. So they have to consistently improve and move the needle forward. And when I look at machine learning, I think it's having a wonderful renaissance right now, which is very exciting. But what I see happening right now is people getting excited about the chat interface on technology that's been around for over a decade.
Right.
And it's important to remember that all AI is, especially machine learning, is a expression of the data that's available in the environment. Right? Better data, better outputs, better efficiency. Most companies right now don't have great data around their 5 fundamentals. They don't know how to grow revenue using data or to reduce costs or delight customers, et cetera. And so I tend to focus on the fundamentals. How are we going to get the right data that's ultimately going to allow machines to be effective in your business? If you don't have good data, machines aren't effective. And there seems to be a hypothesis that, LLMs, they're so powerful, and the ability to find patterns in huge amounts of data with the amount of processing that they're throwing at it. It feels like we're going to go, to some people, it feels like we're going to go from no AI to just being able to plug AI into your business and take things
Right.
over. It's not going to be that way.
Yep.
Businesses are still going to have to collect the data. They're still going to have to do the work to define their processes. And the thing that I find when I go and talk to businesses, every business is different. They have different values, different priorities, different customers. And so there's no plug and play for AI right now. For sub processes, for like customer service, where you have a generalized set of interactions, the very scalable implementation. But for sales, it's almost bespoke. And every you have similar disciplines, similar processes, but beyond the process level, it's all bespoke. And that's where companies right now have a huge opportunity to be defining their processes, instrumenting them well with data, defining their culture, defining their values, and thinking about how are they going to have the right governance for their AIs. And then ultimately, people tend to focus on the technology because that's the fun and fantastic part.
For
But
sure.
the reality is the transformation with AI right now is cultural. Unlike the migration from internet to mobile, or servers in a closet to servers in the cloud, to the end user, those were invisible. I wrote an email on a computer, or I wrote an email on the phone.
Yeah.
I access software on my computer, or I access software in the cloud. To the user, it's the same thing. This is different. The big difference is we now have a thought partner. We now have an accelerator. We now actually have, in some instances, a colleague that is a computer. And so that's a change in the way that we interact with the technology. Ultimately, it's going to be a change in the way that we interact with each other. And I think that cultural gap is the big opportunity as well for businesses right now. Beyond defining their data, defining their processes, it's really getting their teams ready to think differently about how they work together and with technology.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, you've been living and breathing this for decades now. So how do you take a CEO and a small team? Maybe they're CTO, or maybe it's just a lead computer person in a $10 million company. How do you begin to get them on the path to this integration? Over the next 90 to 180 days.
I tend to find what is their biggest pain point that intersects with the value that AI can give today.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of things that AI can do. There's a lot of things that AI is promised to do. If that's not relevant to your business, AI is not relevant to your business.
Sure.
And so, some companies, if they have big operational processes, it's really looking at those. And it's not talking about LLMs. It's talking about, simple machine learning. It's talking about using AWS APIs, Google services, Azure services, and
Yeah.
thinking about how can we start getting the data that's in your environment ready for machines to think about it. And if you don't have data, how can we start working with your business partners? If I'm speaking specifically to a technology leader, how can we start working with your business partners to cross-functionally start thinking about where are the biggest pain points in the business, where automation is possible, where acceleration is possible? And those are the two things. I think a lot of people right now are fearful of AI automating jobs. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a long while. And
Yeah.
the forecast that I read is 2060 before humans are really fully automated, 2035 before, what we consider to be most operational roles to be automated. The interim period is really about acceleration. And that acceleration is going to come from data. Think of having a thought partner that has the best data of your business available at all times, enabling your teams to think faster and really move from insight to action faster. That's how acceleration happens in business. That's how you can increase productivity, increase profitability, and reduce costs. It's that movement from insight to action. And that comes from instrumentation, defining the processes, and that comes from working with the business partners to make sure that they're open to it. And again, it always comes back to that cultural conversation. For so many years, I've been that tip of the spear in an organization being like, all right, well, I know you all are very comfortable with what you're doing right now and hate when I come over and tell you to do something different, but here I am. It's kind of trying to figure out where in the organization are people receptive to this. And right now it seems to be marketing. It seems to be customer service. And it seems to be those areas that have a lot of repetitive tasks where candidly, the folks who are doing the job are like, oh, thank goodness, this is making my job easier. And, if you think about it, those are the culture carriers. Those are the people who are going to do the good work of evangelizing AI's potential for the CTO, for the technology leader. And that's what you need to make transformation in organizations. You need those people who see it, who feel it, who believe it, and can share that with their colleagues.
Yeah, that's amazing. I agree with you that I think it's interesting how marketing is kind of leading this charge in this phase of the AI adoption. I think part of it is because there's a lot of repetitive work that creative people don't want to be saddled with, right? Like we want to be thinking about the next Da Vinci, and we're here filling out spreadsheets for when we're going to post to Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was the sentiment of this? I don't know. Let's read 30 things. Yeah,
I'm just trying to get this off my list so I can move on to the next one. But talk a little bit about a recent implementation that you did with a small business, something that we can relate to for SMBs.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the big things that I've been helping right now is startups, like 0 to 1 founders, and, trying to get that value proposition right, trying to nail that. A lot of startups, unfortunately, there's a over 90% failure rate of funded startups. And to me, that's just a crisis because, of the startup founders who fail, less than 80% try again. And, that is a huge, so 80% never try again. We just immediately throw away 80% of entrepreneurs. We need to do better than that.
For sure.
And so what I've been really focused on is helping businesses do a strategy, like build a strategy. And it sounds crazy, but right now it is possible to do McKinsey level work with AI. You have to build the right context window. So it's getting the right research, putting it into AI in the right way, and just simply asking the right questions. Now, is AI going to give you the right analysis every time? No,
of course not.
But it's going to get you probably 70 to 80% of the way there.
Yeah. See, you got C-level work out of the LLM, and then you add the human creativity on top of it, right?
Totally. And that's where, in terms of the acceleration that I've seen in terms of aligning businesses towards opportunity and growth, that's the biggest thing I see right now is the startups. There's a lot of folks talking to the marketing teams. There's a lot of folks talking to the CS folks. And so I kind of tend to go to where the problem isn't being solved in its entirety. Sure. And right now, I don't see a lot of people trying to help the startups accelerate and reduce risk. That's something that we don't talk about at all when we try to build new businesses, is the risk inherent in building a business. And so, to try to help startups get funded, I've been advising dozens of them on how to build strategies, how to work backwards from the customer using data, how to quickly analyze competitors. So one of the really fun things that I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you can take your competitor's website and just upload it into Claude or OpenAI and ask several questions like, tell me the merchandising strategy, tell me the pricing strategy, give me indication of what technology was used to build this, write the functional and non-functional requirements of this. You can do that with screen captures of apps as well. And these are radical accelerants for companies. That stuff used to take us weeks to do. And, you can get, it's not perfect, but it's going to get you 70 to 80% of the way there. And if you're building a new product, understanding what your competitor is selling is so important. Another great thing that you can do is take the job boards of your competitor. Let's say you look at all their product and data hiring. You can just upload those jobs into AI and say, what can they do with this? Where do we think they're going based upon the jobs that they're posting?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, that kind of competitive intelligence kind of helps push away things that you shouldn't be focusing on as a startup. A lot of startups focus on the near field immediate opportunities, and it's really the greenfield opportunities that they should be shooting at.
Yeah, wow, I love that. That's where you're focused on. I always thought that funded startups, one of the inherent problems was they had too much money, right? Like they weren't gritty enough, like they weren't shoestring enough. But it's sad to hear that 80% of them don't go and do it again, because that's such valuable information from that failure, right? That experience. So. I'm interested to know, have you built a prompt library around the 5 fundamentals of business that you mentioned earlier? So that's something around that we can have.
That's what I'm going to be open sourcing over the coming weeks. Yeah, awesome. That's exactly. So I've written a course that's on innovation writ large. And when you look at innovation or transformation, they're very much the same thing. You have a cultural pillar, you have a technical pillar, you have a product pillar, like what are we going to do with it pillar, and that could be mergers and acquisitions or incubators, accelerators, or product building something. And then you have a team pillar. And I'm going to start my course with culture and team, because that right now is the lead horse. That's the friction point. That's where if businesses get that right, they can actually scale with AI. 43% of CEOs think that their entire team needs to be retrained in the next 3 years. That's a huge amount of retraining that needs to happen.
For sure.
And then when you look at it, there's a great study, I think it was by IBM, that said 65% of CEOs believe that technology is moving faster than their team is even aware of or can keep up with.
Sure.
And so for us to truly get the businesses involving with AI, we need to get the teams kind of aware of it and comfortable working with it. And that's, developing the right mindset. So growth mindset, resilience, continuous learning, which is something we don't do very much in business. We got our degree, we went out in business, and we're like, I'm done learning, and what's going to happen right now is for the next 5 to 10 years, AI is going to change every month. The new capabilities, the new technologies, and even AI, when I use it daily, several hours a day. It changes daily. Like sometimes Claude works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, so that kind of adaptivity is not something that we have baked into a lot of our cultures. And so it's starting there and then moving towards exactly what you said, the prompt library around the 5 fundamentals. And the way that I'm taking it is a very first principles approach. There's a way a lot of people prefer single shot prompts where I just put the prompt in there and hope that it gives me the response.
The gumball machine. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
No, exactly. And so the way that I've structured this is multi-shot with building a context window.
Right.
And so, having people upload their business information, which some people have greater or lesser comfort with, but then also uploading their customer information, and obviously not PII or anything, regulatorily dangerous, just stuff that's safe to upload, and then their competitive information, and then working backwards from that to understand what are the opportunities that might exist. For a lot of folks, it depends upon the type of organization they have. Companies with a strategy team or folks who have a strategy background, they tend not to like using AI. They tend to still believe that it's not that powerful. And again, that goes back to the culture, and so the big hurdle is just getting people over the belief that AI is helpful.
I appreciate that. And so there's 2 things in that. One is we need to be integrating and testing AI if we think it's going to help us. And we also need to be testing it and looking at it if we think it's not going to help us to prove that, right? And to see where that gray area exists, where it actually is functional and valuable now.
Yeah. And I would say that, I always tend to look at kind of, especially with new technologies, I did a video a couple of weeks ago on how do we assess whether or not AI is credible. And I asked 10 questions, and 2 of those questions were, are investors talking about it, and are CEOs talking about it?
Right.
every CEO, every technology CEO is talking about it. As far as the latest data I saw, is something like 35% of the S&P 500 CEOs are mentioning it in their quarter calls.
Right.
Every investor, and I mean every investor of every category, is talking about it. By my calculation, it's over $130 billion that's being invested this year into AI. And so, I think it's a credible technology. I think it's going to do spectacular things. And what we see, like just a couple days ago, the CEO of AWS said that in 2 to 3 years, he doesn't think Amazon developers will be writing software. He thinks they'll be more product managers.
Right.
Well, that's a huge transformation. And so the evolution that's happening is immediate, even if people don't believe it's relevant to them. And the difficult thing about AI that's totally unique from all other technologies is this is not about plugging in something and making it faster or better. This is literally about working with it to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And if your teams are willing to do that, I always think about building a little tiger team or a little cell, let's say,
Right.
and getting folks super acclimated with what it's capable of doing just generally, and then deploying that cell around the business to listen to the requirements of the business and map what AI could do today with where it might be able to help them today. And then as AI evolves, continue to shop that around the business. It could be a single individual. It doesn't take a lot of time. It could just be one person.
Yep.
Or if you're a very large company, it could be a team of people. But it's absolutely an ongoing conversation. It's not like the cloud where you're like, hey, we've decided we're going to go to the cloud. Let's go do that.
We're going to implement it and it'll be done. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like that.
It's not that simple because of the dynamism of it. Like you talked about, in the same day, Claude can change because it's learning. And sometimes it's learning for good. Sometimes it's turning out less than good stuff.
Totally. Exactly that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to keep your BS detector on all the time, but you have to be interacting with it. I think.
Yes, and that's where from a cultural perspective, we don't. In my experience, and I'm not like making a broad criticism here, but in my experience, I have found a lot of companies don't create resilience in their employees. It's we really have done a great job of creating a wonderful experience for most employees where their cognitive load is low. Yep. The questions that they have to answer in a day is low. So decision fatigue is achieved very quickly.
Yeah.
And in AI, for us to accelerate, we're going to have to make decisions. We're going to have to think. Our cognitive load is going to increase. But that's the competitive advantage. The companies that do that well are the ones that are going to get ahead. And the wild thing that I've seen with AI is once people get it, that competitive advantage is durable.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away.
Right.
And it's just
it's cultural. That's the change. Yeah, totally. I get it. And the leapfrogging, that's what's so impressive is that these brand new startups that are delivering it at the highest level of the marketplace and are jumping over these, 50-year-old companies. So
yes. That's going to, I think the dynamism we're going to see in the economy as a result of that is going to be unprecedented. Yeah. The ability, I was listening to the former Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, talking just a couple of weeks ago. He gave a lecture at Stanford, and the lecture was famous for some of the negative things he said about Google. But what was kind of overlooked in his comments was that he said this a couple times. He believes that in 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to say, build me a Spotify competitor. And AI will go away for a period of time, like a day or so, and come back and say, here it is.
Right.
And then you could say, make it work, iterate in the market. And it'll just sit there and run experiments with the customer. And look, I've been in technology since 1997, and I've heard a lot of hyperbolic statements. I've heard a lot, we're going to go live on Mars and stuff like that. Okay. But Eric Schmidt, the government picked him to figure out America's strategy for AI. He was the CEO of Google. He's one of the largest investors in AI. He's probably pretty credible in this domain. If he's saying that multiple times in multiple environments, like that's a radical evolution. And businesses need to be thinking about, it's not just about our operations today. It's about our survivability, resilience, and potential in 2 to 3 years. That's not a long time. If you think about, I mean, I have tried to do technical transformations, and a great example is I was working with a architecture firm, and they needed to change a server. That's it. Just needed to go from this version of Windows to that version of Windows.
Yep.
And it had a consequence in terms of the software that they used. And people were screaming and crying, and like it was a week-long cultural, emotional crisis. And I was kind of brought in to soothe the waters and help
Yep.
people through that. That's a tiny change compared to what's about to happen, right? We're talking about the average person on the street being able to build a competitor to Amazon. The defensibility of most business models is going to become fundamentally under threat. And if businesses are not today using AI to develop their competitive moat, to develop their edge, and to really think about principally how to develop their relationship with the customer, because it's that relationship that is going to make the business durable. If they have a really good relationship with that customer, and by the way, most businesses have customers today. That's why they're in business. So
Sure. Yeah.
they have the fundamental advantage right now
Yeah.
of trying to secure that relationship with the customer using AI, create
Interesting.
deep embedded connections, and it'll make it very hard for new businesses to disrupt them. But if they're not doing that today,
Yeah.
if they have a low net promoter score, if it's easy to build an alternative, and especially in the customer's mind, if it's easy for the customer to think, I don't really care, I'll go get it over here.
Yeah.
That's a very vulnerable place for many businesses. And it's a question that most businesses have never had to ask. Are we vulnerable from disintermediation?
I love it, West. You have got a great perspective, and I really appreciate your time this morning. How do people get into your training program and interact with this content that you're getting ready to release?
Howdo.com.
Howdo.com. I love it.
Yeah, just go to Howdo and you can sign up, and I'll be releasing it over the coming weeks.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to participating in that myself. And I'd love to have you back on the show in a couple months to see how your product release is going and what you've seen in the dynamic world of AI.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time this morning, Emmanuel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that was awesome, and I'm really thankful to have had you had this conversation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel